Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at if I grab the box because I'm such a professional, I was prepared, the Z87M Gaming from MSI. And essentially what MSI have done with this little beauty is they've tried to cram all of the good stuff from the GD65 Gaming, which I reviewed when Haswell was first released and I loved so much, into an MATX platform to open the market up to those of you that maybe want a smaller case, you know, maybe looking for something to go with a Corsair 350D, for example. So they've brought out this new to the market. Now the problem with this, and the fact that I liked the GD65 Gaming so much, still do have my racing rig built on one, is that my expectation levels are very, very high. And this comes in at around the £140 mark. So it actually comes in cheaper than a GD65 Gaming as well. So my expectations are pretty much up there. So it's got an uphill struggle to win me over, this one. But what we will do is we'll move on. We'll have a look at the rig, and it is beside me at the minute. It is a bit ghetto because it's on an older test bench, because I didn't build it into a full case. We've got it set up kind of open air. And I used to always do my reviews on this, just in case there are new people out there going, oh, it's not built into a case. This is the way I always used to do my reviews. And it's just, we don't seem to have done it for a little while. And also the fans on my bench graphics card died, so I've had to ghetto some fans onto the stock heatsink, or the heatsink that came with it. So it's all a bit kind of rough and ready today, but I'm also planning on going away for a few days next week, so I'm also very limited on time. So rather than waiting for a new graphics card or new fans to arrive and, you know, spending that extra time building it into a case, we're doing it this way just so that we can get the review done. So I hope you will forgive me, I think is the word. But anyway, what we're going to do is we will move on quickly and yeah. Okay then peeps, so ghetto rigs do seem to be the order of the day over the last few weeks, but we obviously have tested it with the graphics card, but that sat off to the side. But I did have to do some fan alterations with that right at the last minute, because the fans on the card decided to stop working. We did use it with the 7970, but we're going to give you a look around the board like this, although Jay has on the Rush Kit channel already done like a good overview and every look around it, but we can also by doing this we can have a good look around it, show you the spec of the system that we're going to be using for the testing, which is the same as always really, and I'll be able to show you a look around the board and the LEDs on it as well, which is why I've not got the graphics card on it at the minute. But the system that we used as ever was the Corsair Vengeance Pro memory. It's 2400 megahertz, and that's a 16GB kit, 4770K H100i. We've got an AX power supply in there, AXI rather, I do apologise. Corsair solid state drive, and then obviously we've got the 7970, which we're still using for our benching. Might end up moving over to a 280X soon, which is exactly the same card, just so that I get to stop saying 7970 and people thinking it's old kit. But a look around the board, we have got a like an LED trace that goes around that I will show you in a minute, that separates the audio section of the board. The little MSI logo lights up as well. We've got 6 SATA ports. We've got the USB 3 external header there. We've got a power button, a reset button, and the overclock Genie button up here, and there is an LCD poster readout as well. Obviously it's MATX, so we've got 2 Pci Express slots, one 16 times one 8 times. If you run 2 cards, then they both run at 8, and then we've got 2 PCI Express 1s. The PCI Express 1s are obviously PCI Express 2 bandwidth, but 1 channel, if that, or 1 lane, just to make things confusing. These are PCI Express 3, these are PCI Express 2. Obviously with the graphics cards as well, there's no big gap between the graphics card slots here. So if your graphics card is dual slot, which most of them are nowadays, they will be right slam bang against each other, and I really wouldn't advise that unless you're going to be water cooling. 2 internal USB ports there. You can see that we've got the 8-pin PSU power at the top by the side of the heatsink. That's really about all we need to talk about, apart from fans. We have a CPU fan there, and then we've got CPU fan 2 up there, just making sure, yeah, you can still see. And then I'm looking round, we've got system fan 2 there, and then system fan 1, I will find it, is there. So we've got CPU fan 1, system fan 1, CPU fan 2, and then system fan 2. I know we're on a bit of an angle, but it's just because I'm trying to show you everything with this in situ as it is at the minute. But the only other thing I want to do, and I'm going to do it with you and change the camera angle as we do it. If I go in, and it will focus, hopefully, possibly, maybe, on this. See if it focuses on my finger. Is it going to do it? No, it'll come out of it. Anyway, you can see that is a dragon. If you have a look, that's the mouth open there. These are like the bits coming out the back of its head, and this is like its ruffles or whatever you want to call it. But that is a dragon heatsink, and they're both like it as well. Now that's very much a continuation of the theme from the GD65 gaming and the GD45 gaming as well. Now the other things that I did want to show you was the LEDs and the LED on the MSI logo. And I do need to pop the lights off, although there is some background light in the room. So, see straight away there the MSI logo's lit up, and surprisingly the LED trails here are white. Now I was expecting them to be red because of everything else, and I've really not made my mind up whether I like that or I don't like that yet. I like the MSI logo being white because it makes it stand out more. But the trail that separates the motherboard up here, it kind of makes it kind of an offy yellow, almost like a nicotine yellow, like it's dirty or old. And I don't particularly think that it works that well with this. So maybe this side should have been red, but the white on the heatsink I absolutely love. If you're wondering why the Corsair H100i logo hasn't lit up, that's because they're turned off. So, you know, you don't have to worry, boys and girls. But we've done that. Now what we need to do is I need to get the rest of the rig all set up. And then what we will do is I will give you a look around the BIOS and talk to you about stuff in there. And then we can, we'll probably have an extended conclusion with this one because there is a fair amount for us to talk about. But with the lights back on, I will swiftly, excuse me, I'm burping my dinner. I'm going to move on rather quickly so that I can get the rest of the rig built. Okay then peeps, so I have saved you the trouble of watching me smash delete to get into the BIOS, because sadly there is no go to BIOS button on the Z87M, and that is a sad thing to say because I loved the go to BIOS button on the GD65 gaming so much. The fact that it's not missing on this almost makes me feel like they've, I don't know, left a Pci Express slot off or something. Anyway, so the BIOS, if you've got used to or you've seen any of the MSI gaming BIOSes recently, it literally is exactly the same. It's everything that you'd be used to. Some things are in different places compared to the way you would expect them to be in other motherboard BIOSes, but essentially it is all roughly there. You know, anything to do with overclocking is in this OC page, as you can see over here. I'm kind of highlighting it, but if we go onto the overclock, everything is roughly here. Whereas with some motherboards you'd have to go looking for CPU stuff. It's pretty much, you know, anything that you need to change really is in this section. I find it slightly confusing because I am very, very used to hunting around the Asus and the Gigabyte BIOSes, but you can become adapted to it. Something else that it took me a while to find was how to restore the defaults, because it's in the settings thing. Normally you have a button down here for F5 or something so you can restore the defaults, or you go right to the very far end and there's a way that you can reset your BIOS. Obviously you can do that with the button on the board, but sometimes you need to do it from within the BIOS so you can start afresh. Other things in here though are the M Flash. so that you can save your BIOS to a storage drive, so you can share it with a friend, for example, or update the BIOS. Just remember, if you share it with a friend, your CPU and memory and everything else may and most probably won't be exactly the same. So I think if you're going to save the BIOS to storage, the way I generally do it is I normally do that type of thing, you know, as a backup. If, for argument's sake, you have to refresh it one day and you have to clear the BIOS, but you can normally save it in the. Hang on. Oh no. You can save your profiles in the overclocking profile, so you can save your settings in there as well, which is a very handy tool. And generally, when I do reviews, I will have a baseline one, which will be things, you know, the things turned off that need to be turned off, the things turned on that need to be turned on, and then manually set voltage and a very basic overclock. So I've got a starting point, and then I'll also have a saved profile of the bench clock as well. But moving down a little bit further, we do have a hardware monitor where you can set your fan speeds and stuff, and you can manually set them if you want. You can set them up with profiles. You know, there's quite a lot of options within this, and obviously where it's a UEFI BIOS as well, it's quite graphical, and it's not as kind of basic as the old ones that we're used to. And there is the board explorer as well, where you can go around. You can see that we've got a 4770K fitted. Come over here, you can see, you know, it names the Corsair memory, graphics card. It says it's an ATI technology, so it's not picking up the fact of what we got. And oh no, let's have a look. You see that we've got an Intel solid state drive in there at the minute. So do you know what I mean? There's lots of things, you know, you can go through there, have a bit of a play, but I very much doubt you'll use it very often. So that's the BIOS. What we need to do now is move on, have a chat about benching, how I found when I was overclocking it, kind of results that I got, benchmarks and all that type of thing. So yeah, let's move swiftly on. Right then, peeps, you made it to the conclusion. Now, one thing I will say is if you've been following stuff through, is that you do need to click and go and have a look at this board in the graphs with the other Haswell boards that we've done of late. And what I will do is I will say the award as we do at the beginning, and then I'll explain why. And this is kind of an extended conclusion, so that we can talk about benchmarks and my thoughts about using the board and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to give it the gold award. Now, I said right at the very beginning, my expectations were very high for this board, and I can surprisingly say it superseded them. It's exceeded them, and it's actually a very, very good board. They have managed to take the GD65 gaming, squeeze it into a smaller package, and also managed to refine it and make it better at the same time as well. And by that I mean a lot of the results that we were looking at were better than they were with the GD65 gaming. But we'd like to think that, you know, with like BIOS improvements and stuff, if we were to test the GD65 gaming now, the gap would be a lot closer. But we've obviously had driver changes and not GPU changes, but GPU driver changes and chipset driver changes and stuff like that. So sometimes the gap can be narrowed if we were to have brought the older board back, but also by not bringing the older board back, opened up slightly with with this one. But that's one of the things with reviewing. You can't continuously retest everything every time we do it. It doesn't work. So we have to go with the original results. And obviously that does mean that this placed itself very, very well there. It was consistently brilliant. Now, one of the things with the Haswell range of boards are that they are pretty much all consistently epic. There's so small differences with them that what you need to do is have a look at what the board comes with and the layout as well. Aesthetics also should be pretty far up there with your choice of boards that you want to look at. So with the MATX format, the three big ones are from each of the companies. So we look at MSI, Asus and Gigabyte. The three big ones are the Asus Maximus Gene, which you're looking at about the 150, 160 mark. The Gigabyte M5 Sniper, you're looking at about the 140, 150 mark. And this now, the Z87M Gaming, you're looking at about the 140 mark. So they're all within about 20 quid of each other. And they are all consistently very, very good as well. And to be fair, there really isn't a gnat's arse between the lot of them. The Gigabyte's obviously got the green colour on its side. The Gene's obviously very prominently red. But with the thing with the MSI is there are little bits of red on the heatsinks, but the rest of it's predominantly black. So I would almost go as far as to say is that the MSI version will fit with more other colours. You could it would be easier to change the heatsink colour on this compared to everything else, because all the PCI slots are black. It would mean that it'd be a lot easier to change the heatsink colour than it would be, for argument's sake, to try and change the colour on the Asus. Now I know we're talking about modding and stuff like that, but my reviews aren't necessarily all about just looking at numbers, because they're, like I've said, this one has beat the GD65 game and has done very well against all the other boards as well, but the tolerances are so small between them that, for argument's sake, if you were running different memory, you might not have seen a change at all. So it's and by different memory I mean a change between the three boards if you were to test them all. So my point with these boards are, as long as it kind of gets up to the level that we'd expect, then it's doing very well, and this one has, both with the stock results and the overclock gaming results. The overclocked results, because we only overclocked CPU. But one thing I will say with the MSI BIOS, although it is all over the place, as long as you spend your time and you know what you're looking at, then you can make you can make ease of it. Although it was I was having to look for stuff, I knew what I was looking for and I knew what I needed to change. And I will say, for me to get now my CPU, I know this CPU, I can get 4.9 out of it at good volts. It is an amazing CPU, I will add that. Most of the 4770Ks that I know people have got, people struggle, and they think they're lucky if they get 4.8 out of theirs. This I can easily, with very, very low volts for one of these, get 4.9. Sometimes when it comes to stressing them and benching them with the memory running really high, sometimes I can have to play around with voltages a little bit more, and sometimes the difference between the boards can be, one board maybe needs a little bit more voltage to keep something stable, which then it makes us think that there's a BIOS tweak there somewhere, or not enough power phases or something like that. But the rule of thumb for these boards is that they will, if they're a good board, then 1.26 volts on this will give me 4.9 gigahertz. I do have to change chipset volts and system agent volts and stuff like that to get everything running in song together. But the difference between the boards is how much I have to tweak the other stuff. This one took very little tweaking at all. And in Windows, it went in at 1.258 volts in CPU-Z. When it was loaded up with OCCT, it didn't droop from that point at all, and I mean at all. It passed the OCCT normal, it passed the OCCT AVX compatible. It did all of our benching, and I probably rebooted it to get the overclock running 3 times. And by that I mean I did a bit, changed a bit, went in, looked at that, went out, and I think eventually I booted in at 4.6, did that straight away, booted in at 4.8 with a few more changes, did that straight away, pushed it to 4.9, and literally on the first time that I went in at 4.9, I opened OCCT and it was stable. It's that easy to kind of work with it. It's a very, very strong and capable board. Obviously you do need to know what settings and stuff to change, and I know what I'm kind of looking for. I'm no overclocking master, but I know my load line calibration from my PCH volts. And obviously I've worked with a few of these things in the past, but the possibilities are there. The fact that they've shrunk it doesn't mean that they've made a weaker board. So I'm really happy with it, to be fair. And I think for the money, the fact that it's still, I know there's less silicon there, but sometimes when you make smaller boards, they become more expensive. You only need to look at the ITX board that Asus make, the Impact. It's actually more expensive than the Gene, even though it's smaller. So the fact that they've come in under the GD65 gaming price, excuse me, I think has definitely got to get a thumbs up as well. So the fact that it's performed as well as expected, but the fact that it didn't give me a headache trying to get it to run at that 4.9 gigahertz mark, it was literally just, sometimes I can spend you know, waste 3 or 4 hours trying to get it running at 4.9 to eventually get there. This was just, I'd gone from stock to running a benchmark in like 20 minutes. It was ridiculous. Very easy to work with. Aesthetics are there. The price is good. The benchmarks talk for himself, or the benchmark numbers talk for himself as well. There's nothing not to like. I think MSI have really kind of woken up of late, because I don't think they capitalised on the GD65 gaming enough. That board was brilliant. They could have done much more with that. And by that I mean in a marketing and a PR sense as well. So the fact that we're now seeing the Z87M, they're hinting about an ITX board coming soon as well. They're really starting to push the gaming brand on the graphics cards as well, and that's what, you know, their little red flash is the gaming side of things. I think MSI are really starting to pull their socks up, and if this and the GD65 gaming is an indicator of what's coming, MSI are going to be putting out some amazing stuff. I really do. I've got a lot of, I'm really looking forward to seeing what MSI bring to the table in 2014 now, because the last 6 months, like I said, there's been some huge changes going on, and I really like what I'm seeing. So the Z87M Gaming, a thoroughly gold award winning board, and it thoroughly deserves it as well. There's not a doubt in my mind on it. It's not a little, it's just gold. It's brilliant. I love it. So with that in mind, I'm going to love you and leave you. This is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Oh, hang on. Ding! Out.